Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Make Things Better podcast. Today I'm joined by my colleague Mark Youngman from Hive IT. Welcome on the show, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, cheers for coming on. And in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about focusing and developing your skills as a software developer. So do you want to start off by giving us a bit of an introduction to yourself, like how you ended up working at Hive when you first got into programming and so on?
All right. Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is that I had a ZX Spectrum back when I was younger. So it's like literally cassette tapes put in, you put them down, you play it, it makes all of wacky like analog noises, like dial-up modems, which you probably also won't know about.
And but you were really young, right, when you got into all of this?
Yeah. So I was like about 8 or 9, I think, at a guess, but I can't really remember. And then, so then the next thing that I remember, so my dad got like a personal computer from work at a whopping 16 megabytes of RAM. Wow. What an amount of RAM, eh? You know. Anyway, so I used to play with that, and then my dad took me to like a C programming class. So that was kind of like my first proper introduction to programming.
And how old were you then?
So I was probably about 11 or 12, I think. So yeah, but then I went home after that, and I did a little bit of programming in C, but not a lot. It was just basic stuff like, type in your name, type in your age. If you've typed in an age over 60, I'm going to gloat about how old you are or something. So yeah, so then, so I think the next point is that I did a computer science degree. So I did that at Birmingham University. So yeah,
how did you find that?
Good. I mean, I don't know. I'm a skeptic at heart. So, but I in public, I'll just say it's great. So yeah, no, but I honestly learned a lot. And to be honest, like, funnily enough, coming into this job, I was like, at first, I kind of thought, how important is the degree? Because I think like only about 50% of developers have degrees. But now I'm kind of thankful for it, because I think it gives you that kind of broad overview of everything, which, if you're just left to your own devices, you'd probably never study. So yeah, no, I'm definitely glad I went through with that.
So you graduated from university in Birmingham, and then some years passed by, you were still working on your own sort of stuff. Do you want to tell us a bit about Raspberry Pi and what you were doing with that?
Yeah, so just before I got the job, so there was a few intervening years between, me getting my degree and getting the job at Hive.
Yeah.
But before that, I was playing around with Raspberry Pis. I mean, like, the actual idea was actually to create a website that provides instructions on, or just helps people out if they're interested in Raspberry Pis, or Arduinos, So, and basically there's a specific chip on the Arduino that you can kind of program directly. And I was interested in how that actually worked. Like, I think, it's literally got, so many legs to it, that you pump ones and zeros to. And then, I was interested in how exactly, what commands you can give it. And, I was kind of breaking that all down. That's actually still on, those articles are still on my website. If anyone should be interested.
Yeah, because then you create
little plug,
What is your website called?
Mark.youngman.info.
We'll get that out there. And yeah, because you used to create some content yourself, didn't you?
What you mean? So on the Arduino side? Yeah, I can't remember what we called the website. We had a logo. I had a logo and everything, and it, I think it was going to be good, but I think. Yeah, so, so I was doing that, and I think, but then I got the job and that all got left. And
you started off as a junior tester.
That's right.
And how have the last sort of 6-7 years been at Hive?
Oh, well, great. I mean, I think, I always had kind of aspirations to be a developer. I mean, this is, I think, a common theme in the testers that Hive have hired. Secretly, they've all wanted to be developers, and quite a few of them have gone on to do so, myself included.
What's the journey been like to go from being like a junior software tester to being a developer?
I always enjoyed testing. I was kind of fine with it. I enjoyed, because while, some testing, admittedly can be monotonous, there is a skill in, you're looking at the same website for the 50th time but you need to make sure you're switched on and spotting any errors. And on top of that, testing compared to development is a lot more like scatterbrained. Like you're constantly switching from different things. So it's it's a very different challenge to development. But I enjoyed it, and I think it kind of set me up to start development quite well, because I was very interested in, first of all, understanding how, who the users were. So I'd often, if Marv was running like a user research session, I'd always make sure to go along with that and try and understand, okay, what do the users want for the site, and therefore, and when I'm so even though I'm just testing it, looking for bugs, I'd still be thinking, yeah, but, is this what the user would want? And if I thought I spotted something, I'd go, Marv, is this right? I don't know if a user would understand this. So I'm and I think that's kind of a good foundation to start a career in development, because you're very much focused on the user. And, history and, government projects and, all sorts of software projects have gone wrong because, they produce a piece of software, but they haven't properly consulted the users. And then, the whole thing fell apart because they show it to the users and they go, this isn't what we want. It doesn't solve the problem we've got. So for that reason, I'm sort of really grateful that I started off in testing, because I think that foundation is it just gives you when I'm doing development, I've still got an eye on that.
Yeah. Do you think some developers who haven't done any testing in the past perhaps don't appreciate maybe like smaller things that you perhaps consider more if you've had that experience?
Well, I want to say yes, but I mean, it depends on the developer.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I can think of at least a couple of developers here who kind of almost test their own stuff anyway, their own work anyway. So, they're kind of, just by, doing that, they're kind of already bringing the kind of philosophy of a tester. But, and that it makes software more reliable by doing that, because, by the time the feature actually reaches the actual tester, it's already kind of, got some solidity. So, but then you just have to hope that if there is some really weird bug, the tester finds it. But Nusrat's good though. She's good. Yeah. She spotted a really weird bug in my code. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And what tips would you have for like going from being a tester to developer, if anyone did want to sort of go down that career path that you have?
Well, I don't know, because I kind of feel like I was always on the developer track, really, because I kind of had the computer science degree. I was always interested in it. I'd already got ideas about, how I'd like to program and things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer, but I don't know. Yeah, I think I'll say this. I kind of feel like, one of the skills of a programmer is overcoming frustration, because especially in the current climate, there's so much to learn, that you just get overwhelmed by it. And I think everyone gets overwhelmed by it. So what you've got to kind of do is kind of stop and just say, okay, I can't understand all this, so I'm just going to pick a little area. I'm going to learn that, and then maybe that reveals the problem, maybe it doesn't. But in the long term, obviously, you're starting to build this kind of library of knowledge. So that's what I'd kind of say to people, just embrace the frustration, basically. Do you know what I mean? And accept that's part of the journey of learning development. Like you've got, I think everyone goes through it, and you've just got to kind of say, oh, it's not, I'm not too dumb. I'm not, anything. I just need, this frustration is normal. I just need to persevere, really.
Yeah. That leads us nicely into talking a bit about maybe meditation, mindfulness. Mm-hmm. So when did you first start meditating, and do you think that's impacted your sort of skills and career and your work here at Hive?
Yeah, well, because like this kind of stuff is difficult to know, because you can never know the person I would have been without meditation.
Yeah.
And also, I'll also add the caveat that, I don't consider myself an expert in this kind of stuff. So I'll just kind of talk about my own experience. Yeah. So I think I got into meditation in a weird way. I was journaling a lot, basically. And it started off like a kind of journal where I used to write. So it happened at university, and I was writing down, university. And then I was just writing down like ideas I thought were cool or something. Do you know what I mean? I used to poke lots of people's insecurities by pulling out my journal while I was in the pub. In fact, I pulled my journal out once when I was in the lead mill. And I'm pretty sure the DJ thought, oh, he's the reviewer guy, start putting on the moves.
So what were you doing with this journal?
Well, so first of all, it was just like this thing of like recording ideas, that I thought were interesting. But slowly over time, it kind of evolved into this kind of accurately recording what I've done with the day. So like putting aside all my thoughts and interpretations of what happened, just recording what had actually happened.
So just being like really objective.
Yeah. And then it evolved even further to the point where it's like, okay, I want to delve into, kind of thought patterns I've got and sort of anything that might scare me or, kind of create some kind of knee-jerk response and try and trigger it through writing in the journal. And then I would kind of try and stay with it while I'm writing about it. Anyway, so I was doing this for years and it kind of evolved over time. And eventually, I can't remember when, but it kind of twigged that I was kind of meditating via, there were certain, similarities between the two. So that's when I started like reading up about meditation. Yeah, so and I think I was probably like, when I properly started meditating, like was in my early 20s, I'd guess. So, almost like 20 years worth of meditation now.
Wow.
So, yeah, but off and on.
Yeah.
So I've done it a lot. And, but I will also caveat with this, I never really had a teacher or anything. I never had any instruction. It was just me reading books. So for example, I think one of the things and I think many people come to this kind of practice with this kind of thing, which is they're kind of like, they've got something they don't want to, a kind of problem that they want to solve. And they think, oh, meditation is a tool that I can use. It'll solve the problem. And then I'll put it down and then it'll be done. And and so I did that for probably a decade of my meditation. And now I think that's completely wrong, where I think meditation is a lifestyle change. It's a different way of looking at the world. And it's actually about embracing what's happening now rather than kind of rejecting it.
Yeah. And that lifestyle change, how have you applied any maybe like mindfulness principles or anything like that to your work?
I think that was the original question, wasn't it?
Was that?
But we're coming to it now, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is the one where it's difficult. I think this is the one that is difficult. I mean, I think it definitely helped me because I think I think I think one of the ways is that I'm not like overly concerned about being wrong. I don't think, and I think that can be a difficult thing for lots of people. And I think, especially in development, I think there is a lot of insecurity because the level of intelligence that programming asks for you is like beyond what any one human can possess. So therefore, there's always going to be this kind of insecurity of like, oh, am I good enough? And I think lots of people deal with that. And yeah, I don't feel like I ever really have. And it's not because I have like some super high opinion of myself. It's just that I just don't literally care really. I genuinely might be a terrible programmer. I mean, sometimes people have looked at my code and said something. I go, damn it, they might be right, But,
So you've managed to detach who you are as a person from the work that you do. Do you think?
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Because I think the identification is an important component because, like, people, it can, any job, or anything you're good at, it can become like, oh, that's who I am. And therefore, if someone questions or attacks something you've done, I'm sure development's full of like, developers losing their cool over, someone questions their code and then, that can sort of trigger a kind of emotion because, it's not the code that's being questioned for them. It's their self-worth. Yeah. So I think that's one thing it can help. Yeah. Or it has helped for me, I should say.
Yeah. That's interesting. And in terms of like focusing as a developer, do you think it's helped you with that at all? Like the sort of concentration side?
I mean, I think so, because on the focus side, I think because my personal view of how focus works is, I think there's a common perception of focus, which it's like, in order to focus on a thing, I need to push everything else away. Where I kind of view focus as more actually, thoughts and emotions arise all the time. You cannot stop them from happening, but you can just you don't have to grasp onto them or interact with them. You can just let them float by. I mean, I like that scene in the film Pan's Labyrinth. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No,
there's a girl has to do some kind of task, but to do it, she has to walk past this banquet of food, and she has to walk past to do something and walk back, but she gets tempted to eat the food, and as soon as she eats some food, this monster awakens. And I kind of feel like that's a great analogy for kind of focus, really. It's just so tempting, when something comes into your head to kind of go, I'm going to have a little train of thought about it rather than focus on the task at hand. So, yeah.
So do you think focus is the absence of engaging in things other than what you're meant to be focusing on, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Well, another analogy I liked in the past is like the idea of like a pianist. And so, if a pianist is got kind of self-doubt, that means that thoughts are coming up about, kind of self-doubt type thoughts. And that's kind of distracting their ability to play, and therefore they're more likely to make a mistake. But there's also the other side of it, which is maybe they've got thoughts about how great they are, and then they're not playing the piece anymore. They're playing their interpretation of the piece. They're not an instrument for the music to kind of present itself. It's more like a show where they get to show off. So I think there's that I like that component of focus. I mean, my personal I'm not saying I achieved this, but my code, I don't want anyone to look at my code and think Mark is clever, or I don't want them to think Mark at all. I want them to think, that's what the problem was, and that's how we solved it, sort of thing. Or that's how it was solved, or that's the correct way to solve it.
Yeah.
So it's, there's no, and I think it's the same way for the pianist. No one should be thinking about the pianist. It should just be the music kind of speaking for itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is going a bit more general, really, but what tips would you have for anyone who is a software developer or is getting into it? From your experience?
I guess there was the frustration thing. I mean, what else? I don't know. I mean, I guess there's just a lot to learn. You just have to plug away at it, really. I mean, I guess there is a point to watching videos and seeing how other people do it, but there's also a time you've just got to do a lot of programming. I mean, certainly one thing that's helped me on the job is just having other people with lots of experience criticize your code, which is like a huge thing.
Because then you learn from it.
Yeah,
brilliant. Was there anything else that we wanted to cover on sort of mindfulness, focus, software development?
Not from me.
No? Okay, great. We'll move on to the final question then.
The final one.
The final question, yeah, the big one. It is, what can people do to make things better? And you can interpret this however you like.
To make things better?
Mm.
I'm going to skip the question because I heard what was it? There was like a philosophy exam, and apparently the question on the philosophy exam was, "What is courage?"
Right.
And someone had wrote the answer, "This is." And I like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't pretend to know what's good. I'm just a confused person trying to make my way like everyone else.
I feel like that's like the most honest answer. Well,
I'll take that compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll go with one more final question. Where can people find you on social media? Because you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I can't actually remember my handle. So.
Okay, I'll put it in somewhere here.
Okay.
Probably Mark something.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, so thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, Mark.
Thank you.
Cheers for watching, listening, or reading, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.